Why rules are important in a man's spiritual life. When I was younger, before my conversion, I always thought that Christianity was full of unnecessary rules. Particularly, I thought that Catholicism was too moralistic, that there were all these rules put in place simply for the church to control ourselves. However, as I matured and I thought more in depth about Christianity, and as I considered becoming Catholic myself, I came to see the value in these rules. I came to see that these rules aren't dictatorial. They're not there for control. In fact, the church respects our freedom very much. But rather, they are there as guidelines to guide us into heaven. And most importantly, these rules are there to help us live a properly ordered life. Okay, let's do a thought experiment. Imagine that one morning you woke up and all the traffic laws in your city were put on hold. The government announced that no one has to follow traffic laws. Do you think that a lack of traffic laws would make you more free, or would it restrict your freedom? In my opinion, when I think about my commute to work, I think I would be less free. I would be terrified to go to work because the traffic laws, they put order into our society that allows us to become more free. So you see, this small restriction where it tells us we can't just do whatever we want, there can't be anarchy, it actually makes us more free to do things that we want to do that are important. Similarly, when we think about religious laws like the Ten Commandments, they're not there to restrict our freedom, to make us miserable. Rather, they free us up and give us a sense of peace to live virtuously. So it takes our attention away from having fear of the devil, but rather it places our attention and energy and gives us the freedom to think about how to be virtuous people, how to exercise virtue. And I think that's a good thing. When we talk about religious laws, we're talking about saying a small no to a greater yes. Jesus loved the laws of the Jewish people. Look what he says in Matthew 5:17. Jesus says to his apostles, "Do not think that I've come to abolish the law or the prophets. I've come not to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until it is accomplished." So often we tend to think of Jesus as this great revolutionary, but rather he is not here, he didn't come to simply erase what the Jewish people have established, but rather to fulfill it, rather to build up on it. Jesus knew the importance of laws, of rules in people's lives. It's important to have religious rules that govern our lives. And the main reason, I think, is when we are in proper worship, then we can live a life of proper order. What do I mean by that? I think when we are disciplined in our religious life, that discipline crosses over into our personal and family lives. I think particularly for us as men, it's important to have good discipline in our household. It's important for us to have rules in our household that orders our household properly and orders our family properly. Now, I mentioned this before, I'm not talking about using rules to make people do what we want. We're not supposed to be dictators of our family. We're supposed to be God's stewards of our family. So when we talk about these rules that are informed by the gospel, they are there to keep a proper order in our family. And this order is not necessarily one of military order, like that's not what I'm talking about. I'm simply talking about order that is aimed towards God, that everything that we do as a family, as a household, is aimed towards serving and loving God. Everything is ordered towards that end. Order without the proper end just is anarchy, or at worst it becomes a dictatorship. So remember, in our family, when we place laws or rules in our household, they are there first and foremost at the service of God, not at the service of ourselves. Lastly, religious laws such as the Ten Commandments, the Beatitudes, or when we look at the sacramental laws of the church, they free us up to be disciplined. They provide the guardrails for us to be disciplined. And when we have discipline, we become more free. You know, there's a famous saying or he wrote a famous book on this, Jocko Willink. He said discipline equals freedom. And there's truth to that. Because freedom is not to do whatever we want. Freedom is to do what we ought, as C.S. Lewis says. So when we are disciplined in our personal lives, that translates into discipline in our home. And if you're a father, you know how this works. So when you as a father are living an ordered life, you're disciplined in your behavior, you're disciplined in controlling your emotions, you're disciplined in your physical performance, you're exercising, you're eating well, you're disciplined in how you love your spouse. Kids see this, and they too will emulate that discipline in their own lives. And most importantly, when they're disciplined, when they're on a disciplined path, the devil will have a much harder job of getting to them. So remember, discipline in your life as a man, as a husband, as a father is important, because that discipline is going to translate into discipline in your household. And most importantly, this discipline is going to order your household towards God.